Good evening, friends, and welcome to this edition of the Mystery Wine Blind Tasting. I'm Neal, Wavra, your host, and tonight I find myself in a different venue, in a home office, as the restaurant Field and Main is busy this evening. We have guests in all dining spaces, and especially in the typical dining space that I would find myself on a given evening for the Mystery Wine Blind Tasting. So I'm joining you from home. And as I did, I packed up my things and brought myself to the home office. I grabbed the mystery wine for this evening, which is indeed a mystery wine, but it's the mystery wine for April. So I'm indeed fully blind this evening. We're going to do things a little bit differently in the context that I don't have the wine. Not only do I not know what the wine is this evening, but I don't have the wine to taste. So I'm going to rely completely on you, on what you share with me with respect to what's in the glass. And so I'm metaphorically going to pour this evening's mystery wine in this glass, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to work our way through the process and figure out what this wine, tonight's wine, is. And at the conclusion, we'll all put forward an idea of what the wine is, but my conclusions will come directly from your feedback. Here we go. That's going to be a little bit of a twist, isn't it? Good evening to you, Sarah and Kristen and Dean and Bobbin. Yeah, absolutely, Sarah. It's totally a twist. A little scary, but I think it's going to be fun. I think there's a quality about this that, what reinforces the truth that I really don't know the wines that we're picking, and that the process itself, as we've seen many others kind of join us throughout the scope of these tastings without the wine, do play along and offer some commentary. So I'm going to do that for sure for you for this evening. And I'm going to guide you through the process as I would each and every Thursday that we do this. But I don't have the wine to add my own feedback on. And I don't have that crutch, if you will, to kind of think, oh, this had a taste sensation memory. So I'm not going to be allowed to use that as a reference point. So I'm going to need more from all of you. Let's put it that way. A couple things before we jump right in. Pour yourself a glass if you haven't already. But a big thanks to the Kubitskis who brought some tea-berry gum my way. They, some of you might remember, they used tea-berry as a reference point in one of the flavor profiles that we were noting in a wine in the past. And I got a chance to try tea-berry gum for the first time. It's kind of like a root beer barrel, like a Brock's root beer candy. And so neat to have that reference point brought full circle, and I appreciated the opportunity. It is apparently a white wine. Yes, it's clear and see-through in my case, but you're going to have to give me more details. So let's go, huh? Thank you very much. You've got Curtis and Renee, Bill, and Debbie joining from Fredericksburg. That's awesome. That's great. All right, here we go. So you poured the glass. You've got wine in your glass. There's an aroma, hopefully sort of starting in the glass and coming out. We'll get to that in a minute, of course, but what does the appearance look like as you swirl it and as the wine forms its top rim from the swirl? What's cascading down? Are they kind of subtle, small little tears that run and form legs that hold? Are they thicker and syrupy? Are they sheets of glass? In the white wine world, we might see a little bit of a different variation of texture, but apparently white is where we're starting and going from light white to light gold, according to Johnny. Thank you, Kristen. Very pale, light green gold. So there's gold flecks here, or like green kind of tinge to this wine that has little gold flecks, or is it kind of golden through? It's very pale as a note. It's sheeting in the glass, so lighter in body. That's the case. Julie, thank you very much again for the gum. Yes. Gold coming down as a sheet. So a light pale, a lighter bodied profile because it's sheeting and has a little gold fleck to it, or golden tinge, medium yellow, gold pale. Okay. Hi from Dory and Larry. Good evening. Hi, guys. Welcome. I'm glad to have you with us. Sheeting there too. So, right, no tears, no legs, more sheeting, lighter bodied white wine, pale, bright and vibrant, gold tinge, pale gold, medium yellow. Okay. I mean, that's right. What happens with white wine relative to, say, we get a chance doing this to taste a lot more red than white. White is going to be on that sort of pale, day bright side of things into a gold, pale gold, yellow gold kind of quality up into sort of deep, rich golden, into ambered kind of hues. And the amber elements would be more kind of aged wines, wines with barrels, perhaps wines that have been oxidized a touch. And so we're not kind of in that end of the spectrum. It seems like we're more on the pale yellow side. Jed and Barbara, good evening. Welcome. So glad to have you with us. A tiny bit of copper detected, like color copper or more of an aroma here of copper. I'm assuming it's color you're talking about as we're still there on the appearance side, but a little like fleck of copper, that's interesting too. Okay, so from the color standpoint, just like in red, when we are in the moderate range of red, if it's ruby-ish red, it doesn't tell us enough to know, all right, we know what the grape is, right? If it's pale goldish yellow sheeting gives us more of an indication of maybe where we're at varietal wise than the pale kind of gold color. Copper tinge in the color, interesting. So maybe a little bit of age, maybe a little bit of oxidation, maybe just a touch more richness by way of the skin perhaps, and its sunshine kind of soaking in, so touch warmer site. But we're talking about a sheeting white wine, so I'm not expecting a lot of oak. I'm expecting maybe more of a stainless steel kind of presentation. We'll see. Let's see as we get closer. But that, from what you've just shared with me relative to the appearance, let's go to the nose. What do you smell? Looking, of course, always for a few things: fruit, earth, and wood. What type of fruit? And what's the character of that fruit? What's the state of that fruit? I.e., is it citrus fruit? Is that citrus fruit tart and bright? Is that citrus fruit candied? Where does it sit on that spectrum? Slight oxidative marzipan, a touch of honey. Ooh, okay. So now we're adding a little bit more complexity. Apricot, very good, right? Picking up a light hint of green apple. So stone fruit, chamomile. Ooh, very interesting. Great. So we're talking about stone fruit or pitted fruit, right? Apricot, touch of oxidation in the way of marzipan, honeyed note, green apple, more stone fruit, chamomile flowers. Oh, so flower, a floral note. I mean, it sounds right off the bat like we're talking about a few potential varietals, and they might be. Does anyone have some thoughts on potential varietals just from the descriptors already? John and Jane, good evening from Hilton Head. How are you guys? Great to have you on the chat. For those that are just joining, a bit of a unique circumstance for me in that I picked up the April mystery wine this evening and took it with me to my home office here instead of bringing the March one. So I am truly blind, working off of your tasting notes this evening, which is kind of exciting. I've been thinking about doing this speaking engagement at some point, and didn't exactly know how it would happen, but the idea for the speech was to do a blind tasting for an audience, but not to have the wine. So I would metaphorically pour a glass of wine for everyone, and then we would begin to crowdsource a tasting like we do each time we do this, but without the wine exactly there. And so sort of an improv mystery wine tasting. I feel like we're sort of doing that this evening, except you do have the wine. And so, this may lead to that. Look forward to that at some point. Honey and apple, super floral, alcohol on the nose. So getting a little burn, or the alcohol's kind of carrying the aromas. It's making the wine quite expressive. It seems like from your notes, as quickly as they flooded in, that the aroma was pretty pronounced. It was really present. Not an Italian white coming from Julie, not floral enough, no gooseberry, so not a Sauvignon Blanc, no petrol, so probably not Riesling. This is very helpful, right? So we're cutting out, doing the deductive process rather than doing a kind of zero-in process where you think you know what it is. So it's easier in a lot of ways to cut out. The idea here that you have no petroleum element, so Riesling's out. You have no gooseberry. Do you have that kind of grapefruit, green kind of cut grass element? Any of those notes that are very defining for a particular varietal, they're not here in Julie's note about those two grapes. So Sauvignon Blanc and Riesling might be out. Muscat or Chenin Blanc, Larry's calling in. I think that's absolutely the case that you should consider those for sure. Chenin Blanc, from the descriptors, the stone fruit, that honeyed note, the chamomile note, we're talking for sure we should be considering Chenin Blanc. alcohol being there too, Chenin Blanc's an absolute option, giving you a little bit more richness and some higher toned alcohol. Chenin Blanc can get pretty ripe. So um, definitely one we were familiar with, though, Kristen. So, Kristen, if you can expand on that, what are you thinking that you're familiar? You're sensing something about this wine that you've had before. It's more run of the mill. Chardonnay, for example. Should we absolutely consider Chardonnay? Savory undertone. Interesting. Very cool, Curtis. That's a nice note. Very slow, continuous inhale. I get a touch of acetone. So that's where the alcohol is kind of coming in the back end there. Yep. It's present. First reaction, Albarino, but not committing to that. Dean, Albarino should be considered too. Sort of when you touch on Chenin Blanc, you consider Albarino as well. Not Chardonnay. And Kristen, that's part of like a not Chardonnay style at all. So not an oak Chardonnay, not a stainless steel Chardonnay, not a Chablis, not a Meursault, not a California Chardonnay, like not Chardonnay or potential Chardonnay in certain circumstances. There's a quality about Chardonnay here that until you feel very much more comfortable about a particular varietal, it's hard not to say it could be Chardonnay because of all the varietal styles that exist, the variety of styles, I should say, that exist with this varietal. Okay, so liking Chenin Blanc or Albarino. Yeah, I get you there. Albarino, so let's talk about fruit. Generally speaking, that apple note can be Chenin Blanc for sure. That apple note could come through in Albarino, no question, but it sometimes comes through more like pear than apple. Yeah, so yeah, if you got apple, but we had apricot too, and that ripe apricot element, I don't know if the apricot is Albarino. Apricot coming, say, from, so let's keep working it. We'll come back to that. So Albarino, Chenin Blanc in the running. Muscat also added, not Chardonnay, but fine. Not Chardonnay, not Sauvignon Blanc, not Riesling. So if we're working on Albarino and Chenin Blanc, we can kind of add a few more things to the list as we go if the idea is there. Let's talk about this wine then from the palate, right? So we've got fruit, earth, and wood on the nose. We've got fruit, it bounds, wood in the way of a little bit of an almond element or an oxidative element, and earth elements coming in. There's a little bit of a savory note talking about that. Maybe that's potentially there. Is there a rocky minerality to this, kind of a wet rocks, saline element, anything that indicates an earthen profile? Like, should we consider Gruner Veltliner? Should we consider something that doesn't have a radishy or white peppery kind of note to it in the aroma? We'll be looking for that potentially if it were Northern European whites. Thank you, Julia, throwing that out there right there. Yeah, let's jump to taste for sure. Taste yet and see if we can back up some of these aromas. And in particular, what really helps, I think, on the white wine side is the acidity. And so wood will show up potentially too. You'll taste oak, but the profile there, if it's really lean and bright and vibrant and high acid, we could eliminate a grape, say like Viognier, where you could find some honeyed notes and you could find apricot. So let's go into the taste. Tastes sweeter than expected from the nose. Actual residual sugar, Dean or Bobbin? There's so residual sugar. Wine comes into your mouth, you taste it, you get a sense of texture, of aroma, of flavor, and then it finishes post spit or swallow, and you have a little lingering quality there. Is that lingering element in the wine right after you have finished the sip, is that sweet, like sugar sweet, syrup, or is there a quality of fruit that is mixed with fruit flavor, is mixed with alcohol that makes you think it's sweet and it's actually dry? So where does it fit in that spectrum? Honey, peach, tangerine, very ripe. That's neat. Wow. Okay. Medium plus body, medium minus this acid. No pepper or citrus. So the pepper element. So interesting. Medium plus acid. We don't drink much white, so this is an adventure for us, for sure. definitely has some sweetness. Tasting honey, dry apple cider, and crazy high acid. Great notes there that reinforce 100% the Chenin Blanc side of things. Honey, apple cider, high acid. So high acid grape, we're not going to talk about Viognier. High acid grapes include for sure Chenin Blanc, include Albarino is not high acid. So it's more about parsing out, is there a medium, maybe even plus acid versus a high acidity? If the high acidity is there and there's residual sugar, if there's some sweetness, that also really easily puts us toward something like Vouvray, for example, with a little bit of residual sugar. Another high acid grape, the flavor profile isn't necessarily lined up with this grape, but Petit Manseng is a very high acid grape. Riesling is a high acid grape for sure as well, but we sort of didn't pick up that petrol, but maybe we should revisit Riesling. I mean, honey, peach, tangerine, ripe fruit, medium plus body, medium acid. Interesting. Crazy high acid coming here. So crazy high acid, medium plus acid. How do we differentiate that? When you finish that sip, that taste, are you salivating? Yes. And how long are you salivating? Is it something that kind of tapers off pretty quickly? 5 seconds, 10 seconds? Does it go 10 to 20 seconds? Does it go 20 seconds and longer? These aren't hard and fast rules, but if you're still salivating 20 seconds later and you've got this zing on the side of your mouth, right below your tongue, on the side of your tongue, that is coming from that acidity, that's high acid. If it is something that's present, but then kind of fades out and dissipates and goes away a little bit, 10 to 20 seconds, 5 to 10 seconds, something along those lines, moderately, then you're in medium acid, right? And if it's 5 or so seconds, maybe 10 seconds, depending, kind of less, it just is there and then gone, or really not prominent and certainly tapers out, then we're talking about low acid. So where are we at here on this one? Creamy mouthfeel, butter, not really butter. Okay, so done less, but no mallow. That's great. Residual or not residual or syrupy sweet. Some lingering sweetness, but not too strong. Nothing sugar sweet. Whole milk texture. So that's interesting. So as we swirled the glass and found it sheeting down, we didn't find any kind of tears that formed the legs. This wine didn't have a real substantial kind of profile on the glass, but it's got more whole milk-like texture on the body, on the palate. Long finish, acid is medium for Dean. Viscosity is masking the acidity a bit. Okay, not getting much acid at all, Julie's saying. Oh, so we're a huge range here. 10-second, sub 10-second salivation. All right, acid is brief, tingle on the tongue, not sides of the mouth. Moderate acid. So let's parse out the texture and the let's parse out the texture and the acid. So if you're thinking about the acid alone, just the bright, vibrant acid, where is that hitting you? And the texture itself is going to come from the alcohol principally, and if there's some sugar, potentially also if there's some oak here, and the oak allowing either for some textural quality or maybe potentially some oxygen sort of transfer with the wine. That copper note before, that almond note before, giving us a little bit more texture, is perhaps derived from some oak or oak aging. All right, so Rhone, Roussanne, or Viognier, but could see a Vouvray for sure, Julie. I like the Roussanne element or Roussanne blend, Roussanne Marsanne. That might be very interesting here, giving us that nutty note, some honeyed notes. Chenin, Vouvray, Riesling, medium acid, medium finish coming from Larry. Creaminess, but not residual sugar. So creaminess coming by way of potential lees stirring or the activity of, in the process of fermenting the wine, the yeast, the fine yeast cells are left in contact with the wine as opposed to being separated from the wine via a racking or other form of separation. And that creaminess comes a lot of times from that contact with lees. Tastes like it might be slightly past its peak. So this little copper tinge, this little golden fleck to it. Does it look faded, like tawny brown, like it's aged? Like we're talking about an older wine or a wine that has a bit of an advanced profile? That's an interesting point here. There's a couple of comments that are converging and slightly like diverging. So the acid part here is the challenging part, from really ripping high acid to not as much acid, an acidity that kind of lingers moderately. So there's a quality about the zippiness, but that's kind of masked a touch by the profile of the texture. So when we're talking about this, hmm, okay. Thanks for the feedback there, Dean and Larry. There's no oxidative element, so it's not like super old. It's still maybe a more youthful wine, but it has a little bit of this complexity of character. That nuttiness, that almond, more times than not, is hazelnut for me for Roussan. But playing with Roussan Marsanne, we should consider it. Uh, Julie, nice comment there. So riper fruit that feel a little bit flabby, and flabby like waxy. There's a waxiness that can come from Chenin Blanc sometimes. There's a waxiness that comes from, say, Semillon. I can get a waxiness for sure, kind of a laden quality from Roussan for sure. Hmm. Sarah doesn't have her bottle either. Oh, good. Well, we're in the same boat. Yeah, it sounds like Chenin was where I was headed first, based on the descriptors of the apple and and some of that chamomile element. But I like the comment about Roussan Marsanne and being a white Rhone blend for sure. We're at 23 minutes, which is our typical time where the wine shifts into a different gear and changes. Has that happened? Are different aromas coming out? Has the palate evolved and shown more? Does it reveal more about itself here now that we've been at this for about 23 minutes? What are you tasting now as you revisit the wine? Pour yourself a little bit more, see how it expresses itself. What's the situation with respect to the wine right now? Faint oak scents coming from Dean, but not like a California Chardonnay. Okay, so maybe a little bit of wood, maybe partially new. The comment before, I glossed over it about malolactic fermentation. Um, Not so much malolactic, I think was the note. Some legs now. Oh, interesting. But mostly clear. Larry Vouvray is, yeah, that's right. I'm going back through your notes here. Riesling, medium acid, medium finish, a bit creaminess, not residual sugar. So could be a drier Riesling. Could it be an Austrian Riesling, for example? Could it would not have, I don't think, that apricot nose, but what other grape varietals should we be considering? Of Albarino, Muscat, Chenin Blanc, and sort of a Marsanne, Roussanne, Rhone blend. Those are all very good. Um, Something like Gudeo from Spain, giving you a little bit more textural weight, a touch of nuttiness. That it had a cork. Well, that's also good to know, because most, like if we were talking about being fairly confident that this was Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand, for example, and it had a cork, we'd be like, probably not. Playing that game, the cork also really probably would eliminate Austrian wine, as most of Austrian wine on the white side, even some of the best wines in Austria, period, come in Stelvin or the caps, screw cap. For Dejo, that's interesting. Yep. We tried recently too, and I was just trying to think about that. Spanish, some Churello. Churello is a grape varietal that is used in making cava, and have tried some Churello Chardonnay kind of blends. I'm not versed enough to be able to say definitively that's where we're headed, but it would be an interesting grape to kind of consider in this context. And the high acidity or color of Albarino, no, that's no for Larry. I think the descriptors take me more away from Albarino. That sort of cider note takes me much more to Chenin Blanc, and it's really the question of like, let's talk about Chenin here for a second. And residual sugar. Is there residual sugar here, or is there just a little weightiness, that sort of alcoholic quality toward the back end of the finish of this that makes you feel like there's a viscosity that has amplitude, which makes you think about something sweeter, tricks your palate? Is that the case, or is this more the circumstance of it really being dry, but has that honeyed flavor, and so it's kind of confusing? Um, and then in that case, Chenin Blanc, are we talking maybe South African Chenin Blanc? Somebody said, this is really ripe and maybe a little bit flabby. Is this particularly ripe Chenin from, say, South Africa and not necessarily France? At this point, it gives a hint of, say, flat champagne. It's like yeasty, bread yeasty kind of brioche part, or is it more that sort of sour, funky, fermented fruit, stone fruit? Great. Thank you for it's pseudo sweet, Larry. That's a good way to put it. And no residual sugar from Curtis, so but the viscosity is there. So it's not like a typical Vouvray. Vouvray can be made dry. It could be Chenin Blanc from the Loire Valley writ large. It could be the Chenin Blanc, though, a wine like Steen, a dry Chenin from South Africa, a little bit yeasty. There's a mix of kind of impression there. So Julie's noting it's so ripe that it seems sweet, but it's actually pretty much more on the dry side. So it might have a few grams of residual sugar in order to balance out that higher acid. Interesting. Okay. Is the nuttiness there on the palate? We talked about the nuttiness as a part of the aroma, the marzipan almond kind of note. Is that there on the palate? When you're tasting on the palate, does the nut show up? And are there any other signs of oak? Is there spice? Something cedared, cigar box? Is there a touch of dill, perhaps? Is there coconut? What kind of notes are you picking up, if there are any, from the wood side? Kristen's ready to fire with Johnny on the Marsan Roussan blend from France, so from the southern part of France, the Rhone Valley perhaps, and 2020 being the vintage. That's fantastic. Good. Oh, reminds you of Cali Wine Club Marsan Roussan. That's cool. No nutty flavors coming from Barbara. Thank you, guys. No, I don't. Okay, that's great. So not so much on the nutty side. So not like maybe as dominant from the Roussan side. Dean's going to go Spanish Albarino. Awesome. Nothing oaky or nutty from Julie. That's fine. So it's more about this kind of viscosity and texture and alcohol and apple notes and chamomile. And yeah, I think I'm not to be contrarian with you, and because I really don't have a full sense, but I got a great sense thanks to all of you. I'm going Chenin Blanc. I mean, that was my first inclination, and enough support was really sent that way. And I think I'll stay in the Loire Valley and say Chenin Blanc. Yeah, drier version of Chenin Blanc, but maybe kind of flirting with that. So, But I like where you're going, Curtis, relative to South Africa. I think that might be interesting. But I think that's me playing the game more than me playing the wine. Clearly, again, don't have the wine, but playing the game, like, would they pour us Chenin Blanc from Loire Valley, or would they just go get something interesting from South Africa? What was Julie and Caitlin and Hannah thinking with this particular wine? That's going to be fun to find out. I'm eager to do so at 7:30. So Julie's leaning toward Vouvray. We've got Curtis in South Africa with Chenin, perhaps. We've got Spanish Albarino. We've got Marsan Roussan from southeastern France, which I think also has a viability here too. Just quickly, like, not Austrian because it's got a cork. We were thinking that sort of Gruner Veltliner out there. We said sort of not Italian right off the bat too. Not Chardonnay, not Riesling. So it's more comfortably about these varietals. Maybe there's an interesting or intriguing sort of Eastern European or Northern Italian kind of varietal too. But this descriptor, this apple part, is there any woolly note, lanolin, sheep note at all, that's oftentimes a real descriptor for Chenin Blanc. Does that play through in this? Is that part of the funk that was sort of there before? Um, I like the note too about it being sort of dry champagne. And that's Chardonnay, of course, or Pinot Noir, or Pinot Meunier in some ways. But that dry champagne kind of gives you that apple note too, yellow apple, sometimes green apple. Larry's not going to plant a flag. That's okay. Um, yeah, the flavors on Gruner too are a little bit more that apple perhaps, but that radish and you know the white pepper note. Larry, yeah, I'm not advocating for licking a sheep. I got close once when I worked at Blackberry and dealing with the sheep, but the sheep in the field after a rain when they're wet, or even in the morning when the morning dew is on the grass, there is a pronounced note. And we would be milking sheep in the milking parlor, and you're close up, and there's a full aroma of woolliness that you can pick up without having to lick the sheep. I never licked the sheep. I never arrived at my understanding of that woolly note by licking the sheep. Fair enough. No woolly notes here. Okay, so that's a perfect kind of differentiator for Chenin Blanc. If you do get it, it sort of helps to take you there, but it's not a requirement either. It doesn't happen all the time. Just like petrol kind of notes don't always show up in Riesling. And so I'm going to stick with it though. I think I'm going to stick with Chenin Blanc from the Loire Valley. From your descriptors with like a little bit of age, perhaps 21, 22, something like that, giving it 4 or 5 years of age. So on the high side of younger, but maybe with some advanced age. I'm going to play there. Flag planted. Who wants to tell me? You have the wine. Are we close? Who's got the goods? Open your bottles or reveal your bottles and share with those of us who don't have it what the wine is. Nice. Yeah, do we get it? What is it? The suspense is killing me. It's French. Fantastic. Savennière. Ooh, that's phenomenal. Chenin Blanc from France. Savennière is right in the center part of France. You guys did so well. That's extraordinary. That little bit of funk. Savennière is dry Chenin Blanc from probably the preeminent place in the world for producing dry Chenin Blanc. Savennière is high dollar Chenin Blanc too. Usually it's some nice Chenin Blanc. Clos de la Marche, 2019. So you guys picked up on that age, that apple note. Wow. Phenomenal. Extraordinarily well done. That's exciting. That's tremendous. Oh man, that's awesome. Savennière is some of my fondest memories of starting in the wine world. And discovering Savennière and being challenged by it, it being something that wasn't overtly accessible, but had notes you could pick up, and then combinations of notes that were really interesting and distinct. Very, very cool. Savennière, Domaine de Petit Maître. How interesting is right. Woohoo! I completely agree. Wow, what fun that was. I mean, I miss out on having the glass of wine, but I didn't miss out on the experience at all, and have to commend all of you for your palates and your expertise in picking out notes and finding your way through the wine. That's tremendous. Um, you know, this is great. Well done. I've had a great wine day. Right prior to joining the chat, and partly perhaps why I was not as focused on picking up the right wine, I was doing a little bit of research for my own vacation. We've been nominated by the James Beard Foundation for our wine program. We are semifinalists, and the finalists will be announced in March, at the end of March. But I was looking through a couple of different fellow nominees programs and was just marveling at their lists and how other people approach wine and what things they do with wine and how cool it is to be part of wine. And I wanted to leave you with a quote from Chambers, which is in New York. It's an otherworldly wine list, a wine list that is put together by Pascaline Lepelletier. She is, I think, a master somm now and is an extraordinary figure in the wine world. But she has an intro to her wine list, and it says, "For us, to love wine is an act of stewardship. We seek to support and showcase those who have dedicated their lives to the responsible farming of their land. We seek to know them, to understand their vision, and to convey it as transparently as possible. Some of them are only a phone call away when we have questions. Some are friends to be. Some are now passing the torch to the next generation. Some live on only as treasured memories through the bottles they left behind. All live through this list." That sounds like a remarkable list to partake in. And if you look at the list, wow, it has just an incredible breadth. Like if I was a surfer, right, I would feel fairly confident. As a parallel, my level of wine knowledge would make me a surfer who could surf some waves. But in the face of that list, for example, I would feel like I'm looking at the 100-foot wave, and I'm just both in awe and overwhelmed by it. On that list, and you could have on your table at a New York City restaurant a Petit Malasang from Ben Jordan and a Petit Malasang from Ted Lemon. Ted Lemon makes extraordinary wines with the label Literai in California, organic and biodynamic, just an amazing producer. And Ben Jordan makes Petit Malasang and has for a number of different producers, including himself, and now multiple different iterations for himself. An extraordinary list that has that ability to have Petit Malasang on the table from two different great producers, one of whom will be our guest for our upcoming May event. We'll be doing a wine dinner with Ben and focusing on Commonwealth Crush and Lightwell Survey and all the incredible things he's doing in the wine world. That's on May 14th. The month before, in April, which will coincide with the other wine I have here next to me, our wine dinners with Mathieu Finot. So Mathieu makes wine for King family, but he also makes wine under the rubric of Domaine Finot, which is he and his brother. And they're working in this little tiny region in the Alpine region of France called Isère, saving some fantastic varietals that have almost run them all but defunct. And he's also making wine under that label in Virginia, and we're going to explore both. So a whole bunch of fun things coming up in the world of wine. I thank you all so much for participating. This reinforces my long-held belief that wine connects people, and it's about the connection because you don't even need the wine to experience the connection. And as I'm the perfect case of that this evening, I have been connected through all of you and did better this evening with actually getting the wine right, not having the wine. What a tremendous experience. Thank you. Julie, you're right about Ben. He's teased by it, but also probably for good reason. There's a lot of wines he's making with little bits of Petit Malasang added to it, co-fermentations with Petit Malasang with skins on it. Oh, tremendous. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you all. This is great. Dean Micel. Yes, this is my offices tend to be kind of little holes that I've squirreled away in places. No bars in the window here, though. I can get out as soon as I want. Thank you. I'll talk to you all soon. Crowdsourced tasting. That's the title of this one, Larry, for sure. We'll do it again. That was fun. I look forward to it. Cheers.